Yes, folks, New Zealand school kids are now going to get climate change indoctrination under the guise of education. But this is far more sinister than that. This is nothing more than a recruitment drive by the Greens and their United Nations puppet masters. This is absolutely disgusting. They're using our Ministry of Education for the sole purpose of indoctrinating 11 to 14-year-old kids into becoming future Greta Thunbergs, future Greens. Yes, the long march continues. Anyway, hat tip to Dash Right and Kiwi Traveller Homestead Wannabe Prepper for this story. Now, folks, I've posted a link to this article and the interview between Sean Plunkett and the Greens leader, James Shaw, in the description below. New climate change curriculum, lessons on Greta Thunberg and dealing with skepticism. A new climate change teaching resource includes lessons on Greta Thunberg, dealing with skepticism, understanding feelings about climate change, and advice to eat less meat. The new Ministry of Education resource available for New Zealand students in years 7 to 10 tells them climate scientists agree that humanity is responsible for the vast majority of the enhanced greenhouse effect. Anyway, we'll now go and have a listen to the highlights from the interview.
Yeah. And I come back to the disturbing news that we're going to be teaching year 7 to 10s about climate change in schools.
Yeah, we should never be teaching science.
Well, what science? I don't mind science, in its pure form. But tell us who wrote, for a start, this new syllabus or this new teaching unit.
It was piloted at a school down in South New Brighton School in Christchurch, who, because there's been a lot of controversy around New Brighton, it's built on a sand spit. Once the rebuild after the Christchurch earthquakes was going through, people were starting to talk about the effect that sea level rise was going to have on New Brighton. So it was sort of a live conversation there. And so sort of a local group put together some resources and piloted it, and then it was picked up by Ministry for Education, and a bunch of supporting organisations, including the National Institute for Water and Atmospheric Research,
NIWA,
Conservation, NIWA, NASA, National Geographic Kids, the Met Service.
Okay, how much has the sea level risen down in Brighton since the earthquakes?
Look, to tell you the honest truth, I don't have a measurement.
Yeah, so the so-called climate expert doesn't know.
I know that people are doing that, but it's not one of the things that's in the resource.
Oh, I thought that was why the resource was developed, because people were worried about sea level rise on the Brighton Spit.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what you just told me.
But the resource is for the whole country, and so I guess the idea is that teachers will look at what is going on locally, but also, I mean, as you well know, right, sea level rise is something that occurs slowly rather than suddenly.
Yeah. How much sea level rise has there been on average around New Zealand in the last 10 years?
I couldn't give you that. I think you'd have to talk to me.
The so-called expert doesn't know that either. Yet he's pushing this propaganda on kids.
But I thought this is the really important stuff that we were all worried about.
Well, what we're anticipating is that over the course of the next 100 years, or sorry, not the next 100, the next 80 years that we would see approximately 1 metre of sea level rise.
That's on worst case scenario out of the IPCC, right?
No, it's not, actually.
What's it on?
So that's based on kind of business as usual, which is about the mid-range.
But no, where does that prediction come from, James?
That's the IPCC.
Oh,
The UN. Yeah, so if 1 metre is the mid-range, then the full prediction from the UN must be around 2 metres. Can you believe that? Of course not. That's garbage. Anyway, now to the next clip.
System.
and you'll be, I presume, working from the assumption that anthropogenic climate change can be altered and changed and turned around, even though it only makes up 6% of CO2 and the rest of it's natural, right?
Well, I do believe that we can stop the worst effects of climate change happening if we take radical action, yes.
Yeah, so what exactly is radical action? Horse and carts?
Okay, and will you be telling the school kids that New Zealand is only responsible for 0.172% of that 6% of man-made CO2 production?
Well, yeah, I mean, I had absolutely no hand in writing this resource.
So in other words, no.
So I'm not going to be telling kids anything.
Is there any way we can go to find out what is in the resource? It's going to be publicly available?
Yeah, of course it is. It's a school resource. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Are you also going to cover the fact that some people say, and there is some controversy and there is some scientific debate around the impact of man-made CO2 production and just how much that does contribute to climate change?
Yeah, look, I think that has been comprehensively dispensed with.
So man-made climate change is now real. The science is settled. Really?
Where?
Well, I mean, the IPCC for one, but there would be, I think,
Yeah,
something
people
like...
have resigned from the IPCC because they say it only publishes and it ignores people who have different views and say the science in some areas is wrong.
You can find someone who thinks that smoking is good for you as well, right? If you look hard enough on the internet.
What a dumb thing to say. Absurd.
Smoking's got nothing to do with this conversation, James. That's just a mere bagatelle you've thrown out there.
No, it's the exact equivalent, right? Which is to say that.
Okay, can you name me a scientist who said that smoking's good for you and also questions the level or the contribution of man-made climate change?
I haven't gone looking, but my point is that you can find anything on the internet. Why did you make the
comparison?
Because what I'm saying is you can find anything on the internet to reinforce your pre-existing beliefs if you look hard enough.
Okay, well, I don't have any pre-existing beliefs on this, and you'd like to think our school children don't either, but clearly you do, politically, right, have a pre-existing belief. I mean, it's the basis of largely of the Green Party's political position. I
have not found a scientist yet who does not think that climate change isn't happening due to human activity.
Wow, I could find you 500 people in Italy scientists in Italy last year said that. People have made submissions all over the world on that, scientists. There are tons of them.
Well, look...
You can't be looking very hard. You can't be looking very hard, James.
Yeah, obviously not. Anyway, now to the next clip.
I can gather there is going to be no questioning. There is going to be no coverage of the debate on climate change. This syllabus will just presume there is no debate regarding man-made climate change.
Well, this syllabus is based on the science, so you can dispute that all you like, but
Well, clearly you can't dispute that all you like. If you're if you're an intermediate school kid in New Zealand on this syllabus, you're going to be told you can't dispute it, aren't you?
Of course. Anyway, next clip.
Every year. What are you going to actually be teaching the kids? To recycle, to not eat meat, to become vegans, to destroy our agricultural economy?
Yes, of course they are. They're doing that now. Anyway, next clip.
Impacts on transport and agriculture from the effects of climate change. Oh, look at this. The sea level rose 14 to 22 centimetres in the last century.
Oh, 14 to 22 centimetres. That's very, very accurate, James. So if we take the worst of those numbers, we have had a rise of 220 millimetres in the past century. And now James Shaw claims the sea level will rise 5 times more over the next 80 years to around 1 metre. What a lot of crap. Anyway, next clip.
And there's been significant demand. That's, as I understand, that the Ministry for Education was responding to a call from teachers.
Oh, so James, if some teachers requested, let's say, anti-abortion teaching material, would you give that to them? Anyway, next clip.
You talked about the Australian bushfires, right?
Yeah.
What is projected to occur? So that people are saying that is roughly a 1 in 100 year event, right? You've got an area roughly the size of South Korea or Portugal that has been burnt. That kind of frequency is now expected to increase to about every 5 to 7 years, right?
Yeah.
And so you're looking at fires in Australia of that magnitude within a decade, every decade.
Yeah.
And so the question is, and that's just occurring with 1 degree of global warming on average. If we're looking at 3 or 4
and 200 arsonists.
Yes. And the fuel caused by greenies not permitting backburning. Yes, James Shaw is a complete buffoon. He's pushing this garbage onto New Zealand school kids, and he doesn't even know what our so-called sea level rise is. But how is this even happening? We can clearly see this is politically motivated, and he's getting away with it. So what are the new Conservatives going to do about this? That's what I want to know.